this deep dive, this time it takes us to Valparaiso, Indiana,
Okay.
April 2024.
Yeah.
And, we try to bring, intensely emotional cases here. And I think we've got one here. We're going to uncover a story about a 10-year-old boy named Dakota Stevens,
Right.
whose life was tragically cut short in a foster home.
Oh, gosh.
And the recent sentencing of his foster mother, Jennifer Wilson, has left a lot of people wondering,
Hmm.
was justice truly served?
Right.
What you're about to hear is heartbreaking,
Yeah.
but it's Dakota's story, and
Yeah.
it deserves to be heard.
It really does. It's one of those stories that kind of sticks with you. And I think what's so haunting about this one is that, this wasn't just a sudden tragedy. There were signs, there
Yeah.
were cries for help, and they went unanswered.
And they went unanswered in such a tragic way.
Yeah.
Just 30 minutes before authorities were called to that foster home, Dakota ran to a neighbor's house.
Oh, wow.
He wasn't just looking for a friendly face.
Yeah.
He was desperate.
He was scared.
He pleaded with the neighbors to adopt him.
Wow.
Imagine that a 10-year-old boy, so terrified, so desperate to escape his situation,
Right.
that he sought refuge with strangers.
It's chilling. I mean, it makes you think like he must have known he was in danger.
Yeah. What did
Yeah.
authorities find when they got to the foster home?
So they found Dakota unresponsive.
Okay.
There was bruising on his neck and chest,
Oh, my God.
evidence of a struggle.
And Jennifer Wilson, what was her explanation?
So she admitted to lying on top of Dakota.
Oh, gosh.
She claimed it was a form of punishment.
Okay.
She admitted to holding him down for 5 minutes.
A 10-year-old boy.
A boy who was 4'10" and weighed just 90 pounds.
5 minutes. The image of that, it's impossible to shake.
It's a horrifying power dynamic.
Yeah.
Jennifer Wilson was 4'11" but weighed 340 pounds.
Ah.
It just paints this really stark and disturbing picture.
But here's where the story takes another turn. Wilson wasn't arrested right away.
Right. It took months for her to be apprehended. She was eventually found in Michigan thanks to a license plate camera.
So what happened next?
Mhm.
Was there justice for Dakota?
In October of 2024, Wilson pleaded guilty to a reckless homicide.
Boy.
She was sentenced to 6 years in prison with 1 year suspended to be served on probation.
6 years.
Yeah.
It's hard to comprehend that a child's life full of potential can be extinguished and the punishment measured in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Does that feel like justice?
That's a question that weighs heavily on everyone who hears Dakota's story.
Yeah.
And it brings us to an even more unsettling question. What led to this? What were the missed opportunities?
Right.
Could this have been prevented? And Dakota's desperate plea to those neighbors, that
Yeah.
wasn't the only warning sign.
Right.
Court documents show
Yeah.
reports of possible abuse had been made to the Indiana Department of Child Services.
So there were already concerns about Dakota's safety.
Yes, and that's where the systemic failures become even more apparent.
Yeah.
You have a 10-year-old boy literally begging for help, and yet the very system that was supposed to protect him seems to have failed him.
It's just infuriating.
Yeah.
How could they have missed the danger he was in?
It's a complicated question,
Yeah.
and there isn't one easy answer.
Right.
Often there's understaffing,
Right.
overwhelmed caseworkers,
Yeah.
and it's difficult to substantiate abuse claims.
Right.
But regardless of the reasons, the outcome is tragically the same. Dakota's voice wasn't heard.
Not when it mattered most.
Not when it mattered most.
Thinking about the terror and helplessness he must have felt.
Yeah.
Knowing adults were aware of his situation and yet still.
That feeling of helplessness, that
Yeah.
betrayal of trust
Yeah.
can have devastating and lasting consequences for children who've experienced abuse. It
Okay.
impacts their emotional well-being, their relationships, their
Yeah.
entire outlook on life.
Dakota's story is a stark and tragic reminder that child abuse is a very real danger.
Yeah.
It's happening in our communities, often hidden behind closed doors.
And that's why it's so crucial for each and every one of us to be aware,
Right.
to be vigilant.
Yeah.
We can't just rely on a system to protect these children.
Right.
We have a collective responsibility to be their advocates, to speak up when we see something that isn't right.
We have to be Dakota's voice now.
Exactly.
We need to demand accountability,
Yeah.
not just from Jennifer Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
but from the systems that failed him.
Yes. And we need to honor his memory by fighting for change, by working to ensure that no other child suffers in silence,
Right.
as painful as his story is.
Yeah.
It needs to be a catalyst for action.
This is a call to action for all of us.
Absolutely.
What can we as individuals do to make a difference?
There are so many ways to get involved.
Okay.
You can support organizations like the National Children's Alliance,
Okay.
organizations that advocate for children's rights.
Okay.
You can volunteer your time at a local child advocacy center. And perhaps most importantly, you can educate yourself on the signs of abuse and be ready to report any suspicions you have.
Right.
It's about being informed and being brave enough to act.
Knowing the signs, recognizing them, that could be the difference between life and death for a child in a dangerous situation.
And remember, even the smallest actions can have a profound impact.
Right.
A simple phone call to a child protection hotline could potentially save a child's life.
Yeah.
That's the power we all possess.
Dakota deserved so much more than this.
He did.
His life, though, cut tragically short, must serve as a beacon, shining a light on the horrific reality of child abuse. It's up to all of us to be that light, to be a voice for the voiceless.
His story weighs heavy on our hearts.
Yeah.
A reminder of how fragile innocence is and how urgently we must act to protect the most vulnerable among us.
This deep dive has been emotionally draining,
Yeah,
but the conversation can't end here.
it can't.
What can we do as individuals, as communities, as a society to prevent another tragedy like this? What can you do?
That's the question we all need to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
What will we do differently? How will we honor Dakota's memory?
Right.
This isn't just a story, it's
Yeah.
a call to action.
You know, we have to talk about prevention.
Yeah,
Understanding the warning signs of child abuse is so important.
absolutely. And those signs can be subtle, but there are some common red flags to watch for.
Okay.
Sudden changes in a child's behavior,
Yeah.
unexplained injuries,
Right.
withdrawal from friends and activities,
Mm-hmm.
fear of going home,
Yeah.
excessive clinginess,
Okay.
overly compliant
Right.
or aggressive behavior.
Right.
These can all be indicators that something is wrong.
It's important to remember, though, that any one of these signs on its own might not necessarily mean a child is being abused.
You're right. It's about looking for patterns,
Yeah.
trusting your gut.
Right?
If something feels off,
Yeah.
if you have a feeling that something isn't right, don't dismiss it.
What's the best thing to do if we suspect a child is being abused? What action can we take?
Don't hesitate to report it to the authorities.
Right.
You can contact your local child protection agency
Yeah.
or the National Child Abuse Hotline.
Okay.
You don't need to have concrete proof.
Right.
Even a suspicion is enough to warrant an investigation.
And it's important to remember that we're not alone in this fight.
Right.
There are dedicated professionals and organizations working tirelessly to protect children.
There are child advocacy centers that provide a safe and supportive environment for children who have experienced abuse.
Right.
They offer forensic interviews,
Okay.
medical exams, therapy, and advocacy services.
These centers are such a crucial resource.
Yeah.
They help children heal and navigate the legal system.
And they also provide training and resources for professionals and community members.
Right.
It truly takes all of us working together to create a world where children are safe and protected.
Dakota's story is a tragic reminder that we can't afford to be complacent.
Yeah.
We have to remain vigilant, advocate free change, and support the organizations that are working on the front lines of child protection.
His legacy has to be one of awareness, prevention, and action.
Yeah.
We owe it to him and to all children to create a world where their voices are heard and their safety is paramount.
Dakota's story has been incredibly difficult to process.
It has.
I think I speak for everyone when I say it's shaken us to our core.
It's a story that stays with you.
Yeah.
It forces you to confront a harsh reality.
Yeah.
But it's a reality we need to face
Right.
if we want to create a better world for our children.
This deep dive has been emotionally draining, but we can't let the conversation end here.
No.
What will you do to make a difference? How will you honor Dakota's memory?
Yeah.
His life, though, tragically cut short, must be a call to action for us all.
What will we do differently?
Right.
That's the question we need to ask ourselves. It's
Yeah.
a question that demands an answer.
Thank you for listening to Justice for the Souls.